What is up, everybody? My name is Peter Deltondo, and I am here today with my teammate Evan Place over at Unfold. Evan, I'm going to shoot it over to you, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are?
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. My name's Evan Place. I'm, like Peter said, the UI UX designer over at Unfold, and excited to kind of get back into the groove of things with our kind of block builder app. Yeah, looking forward to doing maybe a little bit more design work and getting some things to animate and play around in there. So
Awesome. And before we jump back over there, let's make sure if you have not already, make sure to click on, not click on this link, but go to this link, bit.ly/. XD Discord, and that's going to bring you over into the Adobe XD Discord group. And I'll switch over to my screen there for a second. And this is a fantastic place to just kind of live, get immersed into the Adobe and XD community. And there's a lot of great stuff going on here on an ongoing basis. Myself, I think we've got Tim Mobest here in chat, colorful Chris Cannon, Joss Van Weasel. I'm sure you guys see Howard Pinsky over there all the time as well. We're in there, we're reviewing projects and feedback, we're sharing pro tips and tricks, and there's just a lot of great stuff going on. So make sure you introduce yourself. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through some of the current challenges for those of you that have been following along with Howard's daily creative challenges, which you can also tune into part two after this stream here today. We're going to be reviewing some of those projects and see what you're all creating. And it's just a fantastic place to go, be inspired, get cool creative prompts, and tune into those challenges. It's a ton of fun. I'm going to be doing one at the end of next month. So hopefully tune into to that too. And Evan, let's pass it back to you. I'm just going to go to your face at the moment and maybe share people a little bit about what we're doing. And then I'm going to switch it over to your screen here and you can walk us through what we're building and check it out. And it looks like we've got a ton of folks here in chat. A lot of folks carrying over from yesterday. I'm seeing Isabel, the one sock. We've got Voodoo Val as always. And I saw Michelle here who was following along on a lot of stuff yesterday. So let us know where you're tuning in from. Make sure you submit your projects from the other from the DDC, and that way we can review those here later on in the stream. And so let's kick it over to your screen, and you can walk us through, Evan.
yeah, sounds great. So what we're building and what we started yesterday is a mobile app to kind of help build a block schedule, not necessarily specifically for you, but maybe for your kids or your family. Just with everybody working from home and kids are at home doing schoolwork. I know, like for us, it has been really helpful to try and come up with that schedule that we're planning for, not just what my work schedule looks like or my wife's, but really what my kids can be doing throughout the day. It helps us to know what to tell them and let them know kind of, you know, yeah, what they should be doing, but also just kind of gives them an idea of you know when different things are happening. So it avoids some extra questions, and a little bit of structure helps, I know. So yesterday we started just kind of wireframing some of that out, and so we started with this first screen where we've got, starting to create that schedule. When do you want to start your morning? So we kind of know when that starts. Then who's the calendar for? How long should this block be, and what activity type is it? I think we had them separated before, and then kind of working through some of that together, decided that it made more sense to combine them just to eliminate some steps. And so we've got the duration, different activity block types, and then what actual activity are they going to be doing within that activity block. So if it's academic, then maybe there's some options here, some suggestions, or you could just type in. So this was the quick wireframe, and then we started pushing things through into a little bit more of the design phase, which we pushed a little bit further, and I'll go into that. But so here we just kind of started to apply a little bit of color, some text styling, and we started building out different components, knowing we had different elements and pieces that we would end up be reusing. And so we've got some of those things, and made a few other design changes where we've kind of got like this type ahead rather than up here where we've got different options. Decided that maybe from an experience side of things, that it makes more sense to just be able to enter exactly what you want, and it also has suggestions right away. So a bunch of decisions have been made, but now we're just going to kind of continue to take this further. And like I said, we've played with it a little bit more, but we still got plenty to do. So excited to kind of get back into those things. So
Yeah, and before you fully dive in there, I think that's something that is really important. And we were touching on this uh, on yesterday's stream. I mean, it is a normal part of the process, and I want to touch base on this a little bit more because I feel like this is one of those areas where designers we get it all the time. Evan and I like are each other's accountability buddies on this aspect of having imposter syndrome and feeling like this isn't working the way I wanted. This is too complicated or it's not doing what I want. It's a normal part of the process. And as we were going through this yesterday, we were seeing in the end of the stream, we're going, I think these things are more complicated than they need to be. How can we reduce the steps and whatnot? And that is a natural and good part of building out a successful user experience. So we huddled up a little bit before the call, went through some things, simplified a couple of items. And so, Evan, if you can walk us through what you think we can reduce and maybe kind of going back and forth and showing what we had and
yeah.
how we got that in a reduced step and simplified
Yes,
this, I
yeah.
think that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing we're thinking about, and let me just go back up here, um, is as we kind of went through all of these steps, like we want to make sure that it's that it's user friendly and that it's not overcomplicated. But part of the thing we thought is once we landed on this screen, we started to think that maybe it would make more sense to try to combine some of those things into a simple view here, where you've got these different blocks. So like let's say maybe you set up that first one and then it brings you to this calendar, and then this is kind of where it takes place. The rest of the decision making kind of take place. So you can click on one of these little add blocks. Maybe a drawer slides up from the bottom, and then we can kind of combine a lot of these things, like the what activity, how long, what activity type, and we can kind of put all of those things into this single drawer or expanded card when you click on one of these. So that way it eliminates um, three or four of these screens, and then we can just kind of streamline all of that into this single app. So that every time they do create a new block, they're not taken to a whole new screen. It still feels part of that same immersive experience where they're already looking at the schedule. And plus, it just adds a little bit more context to what you're dealing with and what things are around it. So,
Right. And I
so
think
that's
that's
kind
where
of
we thought we had this like, hey, let's build a simple scheduler. And then as you start inputting your details, even though you're simple and asking like one thing at a time, it was kind of beginning to be a laundry list of items to get to that final output. So like simplifying it to where it's just, hey, go create this event. That's really all you need to do. And it simplifies it into like 1 to 2 steps.
yeah. So that's kind of we're kind of at now today, where we've kind of just simplified it a little bit to say like when does your morning or when does your day begin and when does it end. So what time would you like to be in bed each night? So then you kind of got those parameters set for the beginning and the end, and then from that point it can kind of take you into the actual calendar schedule view, which we're going to start building out a little bit more. So we would have some empty states here for these different times where they can then add other blocks and things into it. So we kind of establish those the top and the bottom, and then on this screen we can kind of start filling all of those things in. So that is where I think we're going to start. So and I think the thing we can start with first is just kind of building out what this rest of this day looks like. And we did it a few times yesterday, but again, repeat grid is just wonderful for doing this. So we're just going to take that and slide it down, and then we can make sure that our screen goes down. And the really nice thing about XD is it's got that little indicator as to where the end of the phone is, even when you expand the artboard further. So you still know where that bottom is, but then this way it also allows you to get some of that vertical scrolling within the prototype mode as well. So let's start changing some of these times. Well, I've got 10.
I can jump
But
in there actually and help you.
that would be
Let's
cool.
see, 11,
I'm
12,
gonna
1.
I gotta
Let's
unbreak this repeat grid so that all those times show up.
All right, 11, 12, 1. All right, I'll start at 2.
And while you're finishing that one out, I'm gonna go in and start figuring out kind of what we want to do for this add block. So what the empty state would look like as if there weren't things filled in here. So let's do that. And I'm going to start with the same shape, but I think what I'm going to do is get rid of some of those elements. And so the balance we're trying to get here is we want to make sure that people know that it's interactive and not just disabled. But we also don't want it to be too in their face where it's competing with all of these other things. So
Hmm.
one simple way to do that a lot of times is to just utilize some borders or add a stroke to certain things and try to keep it subtle. So we're going to add a border here, and I want it to, well, let's try this color and see what that looks like. It might be too subtle, but then we're going to add some text here as well. Add block.
Yeah, and I can come in here behind Evan and easily start bringing over some of the colors that we have in the palette and start bringing these in. So you said you've got ad block, so maybe 11 o'clock we'll do like a little snack, and green for those healthy vegetables. Eat green things.
Do your kids actually eat vegetables pretty well?
They do. We have tricked them into thinking that like broccoli and peas are the greatest things on the planet. And so it's like dessert. Our kids gobble up frozen peas like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, my kids do pretty well, but they each have their own vegetables that they like.
Mhm.
So some things work and some things don't. But um, let's see. So we've got this block here. I think that's pretty good for now. Um, I want to go through and whoa, I didn't
And
mean to
you
move
had
that
a
over.
schedule, so I'm going to pull that over here too so we can see.
Yeah, yep.
All right, so we've got academic, creative stuff coming in here. And what's cool is that it's really easy to just like swap stuff back and forth. So I might come in here and I'm just going to move these two items, get those nice and spaced out evenly. Perfect. And then I'll just switch those times out so we can keep those. I'll try to match that schedule a little bit so we can follow that. So
That
we
sounds
had
good.
creative time here early.
And one thing I forgot to do, is to make sure that the space in between all of these is within our 8-point grid. It's 20 right now, so we'll just quickly go through those. Unless Peter, that's something you want to try to
Yeah, I mean, I think
do
for
if you
now
like to keep it
too,
moving.
let's just keep it moving. We'll preach the 8 pixel grid and just know that that's what it should be, and we'll clean it up later. But we'll focus on getting a little bit more built out, and we will resist the OCD that we have. Just know it's eating and gnawing at Evan and I, but that's okay for now.
Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this over because now we're going to try and figure out kind of what that add block state looks like. And one thing we were thinking about was adding kind of, like I said, that drawer that slides in from the bottom. So we'll design that drawer first, and then eventually we'll get into the actual prototyping of it and animating that. So let's start just by drawing our drawer first. We're going to get rid of the border, and I want the rounded corners just on the top left and top right. And you can't see anything right now, but I want to make sure that I'm thinking I want to keep it white just so that it stays um, somewhat simple, because I know that there's going to be quite a bit of information on it. But one way we can pop that out is by adding a drop shadow and making sure that um, that it's kind of helps define that top border. And one thing that I like to do too is a lot of times with the drop shadows, the default is just kind of to be a black. But one thing that can kind of help soften it and make it feel a little bit more cohesive with the rest of it is if you change the color of it just a little bit, and instead just kind of make it somewhere in this blue hue. Um, a lot of times you might not even notice it, and you gotta be careful because I don't want it to be purple either. But a lot of times it's just a nice way to soften that and to help define that. But then, like I said, then you've kind of got, because we've got some of these blue colors in these other pieces, we've got it now in that drop shadow, and it just kind of helps pull everything in together. So,
Right.
okay, now we need, let's label what this is as if they were to tap on this add block. Now we're going to label this, so it's a new block.
And while you're doing that, Kanan is asking if you invited another person, can both of you work simultaneously? Yes. So if you guys notice, Evan is working on this right side or on the right screen, and I'm on the left side, completely in tandem. Yeah, as we kind of move our little indicators of where we're at, I'm working on fleshing out the rest of the items here in the schedule and filling this out. So it's really, really cool to be able to do stuff like this and work side by side. And it's what our team uses in order to work quickly and more efficiently because I can finish something that's just kind of tedious while he moves on to the next part. Makes it really, really fantastic.
Yeah, and even if you're still in just like an exploration stage of something, it makes it really nice to just be able to like see what the other people are thinking, and you're able to kind of rip off or iterate off of, something they might be doing, or maybe there's a certain UI element that you like or a certain treatment, and you can just copy that over to yours, and it's just a really good way to really quickly get through a whole bunch of different ideas, um, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to work together. So we've got the label at the top, new block. I want add here so that we've got a way to submit that. And I want to make sure that it is little 24 from the edge. And now I want this to be right aligned. Should we ever change that? Let's do the same thing on this side. So we've got a way to cancel. We could always swipe it away, but this way you've got a very straightforward user indication. Okay, and I don't want all of these things to have the same amount of attention. So this one I'm actually going to try. Let's try it as it's blue. That's going to be too light. Um, so let's try it as a black, but I don't want rich black. I just want to soften it just a little bit, and maybe, well, let's just go with that for now. Um, and then this cancel can be faded out a little bit more so that we're really making it clear what the user is supposed to used to or is supposed to click on to submit this. So and that's just another thing that I try to do in a lot of my designs is be intentional about what colors you're using for what. So if certain colors are used for more of kind of the interactive elements, just to try to keep that straightforward throughout. Obviously, there are some cases where maybe it makes sense to apply it in other places, but generally to have some sort of system and guideline set up is ideal. So um, now we need to have a text field to define what activity type it is. So we're just grabbing that element that we created, that component we created yesterday, and putting it in here. And I think instead of having something filled in, I'm going to change it to be just kind of indicate like, so we could have a title for this input field that says, block type. But one way we can kind of eliminate another piece of information that has to be on there is we can kind of give them kind of a suggested text here.
And while you're doing that, a couple questions. Drew's asking, are you going to blur the background behind the sheet? So there's a couple things we can do. We don't necessarily have to. We might just pull this drawer and container up. We could go up higher on the page. We could give it a background color and like darken it so it feels like it's really in the background. We could blur it. There's a lot of things, and we'll explore a little bit more of that afterwards. Right now, just kind of getting the information that's needed on the page. And Stevano is asking, are we making a draggable sheet? So yes, what we're doing is we're making an interaction, which we'll prototype later, where when you tap on add block, that it's essentially going to shoot up from the bottom and come up in this drawer. And then when they add it, it'll animate back down. So it's just going to pull over. So what we do is we start by creating the finished product. And then we create that intermediary step where we'll actually hide this content on the other page, and
Yep.
then we'll animate it, as we'll show you guys later in prototype mode, to do some cool interactions there.
Yeah, so we'll have this. And the one way to do that is just we'll eventually have this all grouped together, and we'll be able to slide this whole thing up and down. And yeah, like Peter said, we'll tackle that yet today, and show you how that's done. Okay, so we've got this input field that you can kind of help define what this new block type is. And I've got this kind of suggested option in here just to let them know. It could be an example, or it could literally say activity block type. And then as you type, we kind of get that type ahead that we had yesterday. So we've got that in there. Now we need to add a duration. How long is this block going to last? And again, we'll just kind of refer to these things we've got set up here, um, these components we built yesterday, and pull those in. And so we'll just do it in, let's say, 15-minute increments.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, Evan, I'm going to interrupt from time to time just to get Chad
All good.
involved here. Cody Bear is mentioning how they haven't really dove into XD yet, but the beauty of this application too is it's so easy to use. I had a kind of mastermind group that I'm a part of on Facebook. Somebody mentioned yesterday, hey, I'm jumping in, I'm learning UX for the first time. I'm gonna go figure out this XD thing. And they replied back later with, hey, this was way easier than I expected it to be. It's so intuitive. If you know Photoshop and Illustrator, this is a very almost like simplified version. And just a little history lesson on XD back when it was, I believe, Project Spark. That it was very much based off of Apple's Keynote because they were doing a lot of simple animations and prototyping using Keynote because you could do animation and screen to screen transitions. Um, and that's why XD kind of gives you a more minimal feel. It's very simple to get into, and it should be something that if you know design applications, in my opinion, I think you can be up to speed in this app in about 30 minutes, kind of 60 minutes tops. And then by tuning in to shows like this and the daily creative challenges, you can jump in and just really get all the tips and tricks and pro tips that you need. And one thing, I'll pull it up on my end, as we got, hey, our friend Shauna Lynn Panchezin in the chat. She'll be doing Adobe Live, I
Hey,
believe,
Shauna.
next week as well. But if you check out this amazing website, let me pull it up and I will switch over to my screen. And I feel like this either got a redesign. I think it got a redesign. It looks different than last time. But if you go over to letsxd.com, this is run by the Boop Master, Howard Pinsky, and there's just so many cool tips and tricks. This is my go-to location for finding everything out that I need to know about Adobe XD, especially when updates roll out and I'm looking to learn a particular new feature. So if I want to come here and learn about hover and micro interactions using states, you click on this and you can play the video. Howard's got a ton of information about this stuff, and I'm going to assume this is going to take you, yes, I'll pause that to his YouTube video. And again, follow Howard on YouTube too. It's fantastic. Howard is the guy. Just knows everything. Anytime I get stumped, Evan gets stumped, we go bug Howard. So
Yep.
fantastic content over on Let's XD. Lots of freebies, cool things, whatever you want to know. Whenever you get stuck, you're like, I want to do something cool and new in a project. That's the place to go to and find out information. Evan, I'll go back to your screen.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've got the input field now at the top, and then we've got these different durations. And thank you to the states for components. Makes it really easy to show what a selected state looks like. So now we're going to add, oops, we're going to add another section, and basically we want to allow the user to be able to decide if this is going to be something that will be repeated each day or certain days of the week. So a real easy way to do that is we're just going to label this as um, repeat this block for now, and we can always change that text if we decide to later. But and then because we've got all of these days up here already, just to keep it consistent, we'll copy it, paste it, and bring it down. And then we'll just kind of allow the user to be able to tap on whichever days of the week they want to be able to repeat that on. Otherwise, it could be just a single event as well. So let's change this to be, I want this black color. Select all of those, paste that code in, and then a nice little way to accent the selected one a little bit more is we've kind of got that teal indicator, but then I also want to change the typeface color as well to be that deep blue. And let's just show a couple just because we can.
Yeah, do like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This is our routine.
Paste that color in. And so one thing too that just while going through this, just trying to be intentional about hierarchy is that we've kind of got a lot getting to be quite a bit of text in here, and so this isn't necessarily meant to be interacted with, but it's really just a label for the section. So one way to do that is with color, is with type styling. And so one thing I'm thinking is if we make this all caps, it kind of has more of that label feel that is common in a lot of practices. So we're going to do that, but I think instead of it being blue, because it's not interactive, I want to change it to that black again.
Yeah, and you could probably even knock that down if you wanted to like 14, because 14 bold, just to sneak in some accessibility tips. You can always use 16 pixel or 16 point font or larger to pass accessibility. The one exception to that is you can go down to 14 if you bold the type. So that's a nice way to insert some smaller text and still pass accessibility. Not everything needs to be really, really large on the screen. So that's a little like cheat to shrink things down a little bit.
For sure. And I think, yeah, that just helps to identify between those again.
Yeah.
So, and then the last item is what the actual activity type is. So activity type, and then we're just going to bring the same, oops, we're going to bring the same element in down below. And then again, we can give them a suggestion, play with Legos, because who doesn't like playing with Legos?
You know, something we might be able to do there, Evan. Actually, as I say this, I might not. I was gonna say we could do some color coordination, kind of like how Monday does with their project boards, but we're getting into probably needing some additional space. So unless we pulled that up higher, which we could bring the drawer up higher, but what we could do is we could show kind of the preset items. That way, you know, there's like some color coordination and consistency. We could totally do something like that and let the user select or create a new one. That could be another option there.
Talking about what color this block would appear as over here.
Yeah, so you know, essentially here you might have like uh, meals or snack time is green, fresh air,
Sure.
exercise is yellow, you know, or whatever these different ones are.
Got
There's
it.
opportunity there.
Yeah. Let's play with that. I think we've got time to check
Yeah, I think so.
that idea. So I'm just gonna grab all of these things really quick and group them so that I can drag it up.
Michael knows this process. So actually, fun story. Michael Kotchenberger in chat, Evan and I were all up in San Francisco doing an Adobe live stream the same week. And I just, again, trying to reiterate to everybody, this is the normal part of the process where we just spent like the entire trip in our hotel lobby side by side, working on each other's projects, giving each other feedback and critique and changing things. And so many of the conversations are like, hey, we could do that. Hang on, wait, that's maybe a bad idea. Like, that's really, I think so often people associate the design process to be the physical act and execution of the design, but most of the time when we are working on projects together as a team, it's really about just like brainstorming solutions, but more from the standpoint of like poking holes and finding the problems and like thinking of something and going, wait, no, that doesn't work, or that's a bad idea. It's normal. It's very, very normal. So rest assured, to me, that's where we spend most of the time on projects. The design and kind of dressing up the thing that you're working on is really a smaller part of the overall puzzle that you're trying to solve. It's really just poking holes at the project and lovingly giving your teammates a hard time. Something works or doesn't work. It's just how it goes. So just know that. Yeah, it's an idea safe space.
So then, Peter, one quick question is, did you have an idea for a solution as to how to allow the user to select it, or how to associate specific colors with certain types?
No, I have no idea. You have to figure. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I have an idea here. So, something that again we commonly do, and you're already doing it. I was gonna say maybe just do a circle that shows the color tag, and then the
Mhm.
text to the side. That way you don't need to have like giant color blocks. I feel like what we have going on here too is pretty simple. So you could go with like smaller, more minimalistic color, a
Mhm.
small dot, or maybe if we remove the corner radiuses here. Maybe I make this like really kind of thin. Whoops. Why is that? Oh, why is it? I don't know why that's doing that. But I'm just going to recreate this here and I will remove the border, add this shape. Let's snap that left. So I might come in and do something like this. I could give this 100 pill radius just so we get something along those lines. Whoops. Snap that over just a little bit more. And then whatever our text style is here, I might be using the wrong one, but I could do something here with like activity name here. So I could do something along these lines, center that up, and then, again, I'd probably make this a little bit shorter. So maybe like height of not 254, 24. That up. Let's remove the bold. We'll go to regular. And then, yeah, repeat, something along these lines. And then just have those there. You could do something in a whole variety of things. And again, if they select an activity type that you're already using, I think automatically applying that color is great. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think that works. I was just playing around with another where you, like maybe the colors aren't necessarily tied to a specific type, but it allows you can kind of define some of those things on your own, which would
yeah,
be just another option, another way to handle that.
yeah.
Um,
And for now, that simplifies everything. So we can always go and modify things later, but that's a
yep.
good starting point.
Okay. I think that is all we need for the drawer. I think the only thing I need to make sure to do is that all of these guys and that one are on the layer that we need, which actually I need to label this so I know what my layers
Oh,
are.
yeah, as you say that. So, something else that's really, really important when you get into prototyping is naming of layers. And I know, as you can see here from like artboards 39, 40, 37, and 43, we designers tend to be, a little less specific with the namings of things. But something that you need to be aware of when prototyping is that the way auto responsive and Adobe Sensei um, recognizes things is by similar names. So it's really important that your layers match names from point to point. So I don't know what you're going to call this one, Evan, but you might call it something like new block drawer. And that way, when we move the layer new block drawer on a different artboard, that responsive resize and auto layout and all this is going to know what layers to adjust. So that way auto animate can automatically move that and connect the dots of those items. So it's really important if we were to rename that layer or that group and folder on a different artboard, it won't work. So you need to have your naming really specific. And Bianca is asking, are you designing with iOS environment in mind only or also for Android? And for this particular one, we're focusing on just iPhone, but most projects you typically will do either like a phone gap hybrid or you will do a specific version that accommodates for the different devices and operating systems and how those handle. So there's usually like an iOS version and an Android specific version that are slightly different, more primarily in like menu functions. And let's see. Oh yeah, Nadira, color picker. I agree. I think one of those items we can add this later. Right now we'll just kind of focus on the prototyping, but definitely adding something where you can pick a custom color would be
Yep.
really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So then one other thing, I know we have this drawer done, but before we prototype that, we've added kind of these three different options up here. Basically, the idea is that you can cycle through whose calendar you're looking at, so you can set stuff up for yourself, but also for the rest of your family. So just so that we can kind of prototype a little bit more and show some of the, uh, I guess, how intuitive some of that is. Let's just change this to say it is my wife's calendar instead of my son's. And we'll do that just by flip-flopping these. Whoops, wrong part. And then bring that opacity back up. And then the other nice thing is if you copy an element, if you hold Shift Control or Shift Command, I think it is on Mac, you can paste actually it's Control Option. You can paste that styling. So it's just another quick tip that makes it easy to kind of keep moving on things. So obviously this will be different calendar. So let's just change a couple of these things around, and it might be easiest just to show these as different. Oops, snack time is at noon. Okay, let's grab this quiet time and move it here, so that when we switch it, we can see that it's actually something different.
And a question here from Drew. When co-editing, do you ever find yourself getting distracted and watching what the other person is doing?
I think that's a great question. Part of it is, and I'm guessing that's some of the intention behind not necessarily showing the cursors, is that you kind of only see the elements that are selected. But I guess from my perspective is I think it would be kind of fun to be able to see what who I'm collaborating with, what they're working on, just in terms of being able to kind of learn from them. A lot of times I feel motivated enough to try to like create something just by nature. I like creating and trying different things. So for me personally, if I see someone working on something, a lot of times it'll give me or spark a different idea for a solution for me. And then so from that standpoint, I like being able to see what other people are working on. Plus, it makes it easier to kind of communicate with what if you need feedback on certain things, kind of where you're at and what you're working on. But yeah, I could see where maybe it would be distracting, and maybe having the option to be able to turn that off um, could be beneficial as well. But for me personally, I like being able to see and learn from the other people around me that and what they're working on.
Yeah, I agree, and I know Evan and I are our team show the team and like users and cursors here. And I think to me it's actually less jarring when I see what people are doing. It's almost more jarring when just something
Mm.
suddenly disappears without any understanding. I feel like the file's breaking or something like that. But keep in mind that most of the time, I'd say 90-95% of the time, when we're using co-editing files, that it's not just that we're sharing the files amongst each other. We're usually working together at the same time and in some kind of video call like this where we're on Zoom and we're talking through these things. It's all done at the same time. So it's not unexpected that something is moving around or being interacted with. And I think Evan hit the nail on the head there, where getting to see somebody else's creative process, getting to see how they do something, um, might spark a new idea. And I would love to see co-editing be a thing that's like a part of Illustrator, and Photoshop. Because imagine getting to do a branding project with people on your team and literally being able to see somebody sketch something and go like, oh, hang on, let me grab that, copy it, move it over to my area, and put my own spin on it. That's really, really powerful. And, I got to think Adobe's working on it. I'm not breaking any NDA stuff because I don't know, but I would like to think and hope that that's something that is being put together in the pipeline because that's really cool
Yeah, that
features.
would be really cool.
And then startup Sanatana. Now I have Santana stuck in my head. Okay. Uh, that's a throwback. I'm used to listen to Santana years old. Um, is there any cross-platform things to take care while designing workflows? And Evan, if you want to touch on that, and then maybe I can throw some stuff in.
Cross platforms. I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So let us know clarification, but maybe the way I'm understanding that, or like, are there different things to know or be aware of when designing for multiple systems. And by that, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, Joel Buchelman, gave an awesome talk where, and he works on the Google Chrome team, where he mentioned all the little varietal things that they need to work on for different operating systems and different platforms where like I believe Windows and Linux, it's a simple thing, but like the positive and negative actions in a window. Like, let's say you want to delete a file and send it to your trash can. The confirmation and the cancellation are literally in opposite spots of a different operating system. And I know myself and Evan, we both switched to Windows within the last year. And uh, that was one of the things that threw me for a little bit, was getting used to. I'm used to seeing the positive and negative item being on one side, and then switching operating systems, it's always on the reverse. And so just knowing little things like that, that if you were to design it otherwise, the users aren't accustomed to those types of interactions, and you need to keep them in the same pattern and flow that they're accustomed to. So it's really important. Again, I mentioned yesterday, getting familiar with like the Apple iOS, or OS X developer guidelines. Windows has their own, Google has their own, Android has their own. You really need to know and study those different systems to understand the mechanics and guidelines for those, because they lay them all out very specifically in certain formats. I see Evan and some dude in glasses. I love you, Mark. But let me know. Did that answer that question for you? Hopefully. Let's see. And any suggestions on good materials, videos, blogs, step-by-steps, articles, especially designing best practices for Android?
Yeah, I know that there's a variety of resources out there. I don't know that I specifically adhere to just, one specific resource. I know that there's a lot of times I'll just look up different things, and I know that there's like a material design system and the iOS design system, and there's tons of documentation on those types of things.
Yeah.
Specifically Android, I know that there are other ones like that as well. So I don't know if I personally have a specific one to go to. Usually I'll search for more specific use case, and kind of go from there. But
Yeah, and I just pulled
Fine.
that up on my end. If you go to material.io, there's a great one. I believe this is put together by um, the team over at Google. I mean, again, all of this stuff, like if you get into motion and understanding, like they nail down what's the speed and they show you videos and examples. I know when they get into, it might be under shape, but one of them it shows like what the z-axis and everything is for what the shadows should be. Like they get into the specifics of all of this stuff. So there's a lot of great resources that you guys can go to. You know, just jump into Google. There's also a lot of great stuff over on again, you know, YouTube. I know there's a lot of stuff on the Adobe Creative Cloud channel here. I would highly encourage you check that out. Um, you know, we're doing a whole series on the Unfold team YouTube, which is youtube.com/unfoldco. We're going to be doing a series going over a ton of design program stuff, going into a lot of these specifics of like the 8 pixel grid system, why you should be using 12 column grid versus 8 column, and we'll be going in a lot of those best practices type stuff too. So, you know, there's a wealth of information online, and I'd say go study a lot of those resources and materials. All right, so Evan, walk us through a little bit more here of what you're setting up.
Yep. Yeah. So I know we're gonna animate this drawer that'll slide up and in. So we've got that set up, and then I want to be able to kind of showcase, switching between calendars, which we've got here. And so one thing I noticed is I didn't have this built out as a component, and obviously we have two clear states where one's an active and one's inactive. So I quickly created that component and then defined those two states.
Right, and
Um,
just to slow us down there for a second, I know we went over this yesterday. Walk us through what a state is and how you go about creating that, because this is like one of the newer features in Adobe
sure,
XD
of
within the last
course.
few months that is really, really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. So normally, obviously, you can see here we've got two different states. These are deselected. This one is active. So normally, without component states, you would have to create um, two separate components basically, and then you'd have to switch between them. But the nice thing is that with and let me ungroup this quick so that I can kind of redo it quick. The nice thing with components is in XD is we have state. So if we group this and make this a component by going over to the sidebar, we've got component, this little plus button, clicking that plus, now it is a master component, which you can see here. So any iterations or duplicates of this, if I was to hold Option and drag it off, now you can see it labels this as an instance. So all of these, if we were to do it with a bunch of them, the nice thing is they're all connected. We can change the color and they all change. So, but to take that one step further is now there are states, which you can see here is the default state is created obviously by default. But if you want to add additional states, you simply click this plus button with the master selected. You can do a hover state, which kind of has some of those, the prototyping built in, so it saves you a step. So if you create a hover state, anytime you hover over that, it will automatically switch between those two states or cycle between them. Otherwise, if you want to create a new custom state, you can do that by hitting new. We'll define this as, let's do inactive, since we've got the default state is active. And then when you click on this master, nothing changes here now because we haven't changed anything. So select the state that you want to edit. In this case, we're gonna change this one, which we can rename because I don't know why I didn't save. I think I hit a button before. So we've got inactive. So now we've got this inactive state selected. So that's what we're viewing here. So now we can, I'm going to copy the styling here. And because we still are on the inactive state here, by selecting just this layer, because that's the one I want to affect, I can paste that style in here. This looks like it disappeared because it's still set to white, but we can change that to black. And so now we've got two different states here. We've got the default state, which is active, and then we've got an inactive state. So the super cool thing is that's what I did on these already. So I'm going to just duplicate this over, and I know I need one of them to be selected. So rather than having to go to the assets panel and dragging it in from here, I can just select it and switch it to the selected state, and it just saves a lot of steps. So it makes it really easy to cycle between those different states, but also keeps the amount of components you have cleaned up. And so technically, these are just, this example is we've set up 3 states on this one as well, the default, selected, and input. And I just, so I know what's all there. If I want to, I have the option to be able to drag these out. And this is just showing the selected state of that one, and this is showing the input state. So you have that flexibility. If you want to show everything, you can, but you don't have to, and everything is still there. And it cleans up your artboards and the amount of content you have displayed considerably. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's really quick, but it's just, there's a lot of cool things with it. I'm not sure if we'll get to it today, but I know that even within these states, you can use the benefits of auto animate. So when you select different things, it will it'll animate that transition between those 2 states anytime they change, which is
Yeah.
again just saving tons of steps.
Cool. And while you're setting up a couple more things, I'm gonna just take us through a couple more slides. So again, if you have not already, we're gonna be doing some challenge reviews in about what 40 minutes. So if you have not yet already, hop on over. I'm gonna shrink Evan down a little bit. Hop on over to the Discord server. You can sign up here. It's free to get an account and get started. And make sure you go over to the current challenge channel. So over here on the left hand side, you will see the current challenge channel under feedback. And come on down there, go ahead and post some designs. If you want, tag me, and I'll make sure that I see some people that are here live in the stream. I'd love to prioritize your guys' work here since I know you're watching and we can give you some feedback. So if you've already posted it too, go ahead and just repost and tag me that you're watching the stream, and we'll pull that up. Um, Other things, if you have not yet today, make sure you check out. There's some fantastic content, a lot of great stuff happening earlier this morning. But since that's in the past and you can't tune into that anymore, except on the replays, so I mean you can on YouTube, but make sure you stick around after this segment for the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenges with Howard Pinsky. Again, awesome challenges going on there this week and next for this series. And then join our pal Alex Lazarus doing some really cool stuff in 3D. And Alex is, in my opinion, I think I always rave on him about this. He is a fantastic designer, putting together some really solid Behance case studies. So if you're looking for kind of a master class of how you should be doing your stuff on Behance, check out Alex's page and his work. Tune into that segment later. He does a fantastic job. We do a pretty good job too. If you want, you can check us out on Behance, and maybe Val, if you can post our team's link, we'd love for you to come and check out and follow our work, and let us know. And then lastly, we have creating backgrounds for video conferences with Paul Tranny. They're doing some really cool stuff over there since everybody's using tools like Zoom and whatnot right now, Skype. Have some fun with it. I saw somebody on Reddit this morning that is using a chroma key green screen like we are, and then got like a green body morph suit. So he's just got the floating head, and I think he did the evil guy from The Wizard of Oz, and he has that video background
Oh, that's
playing in the
awesome.
background. It is really fantastic. So, uh, yeah, have some fun with
Cool.
that one. Go be creative. Again, might not be the thing that you do regularly, but go enjoy and have some fun creating something that's a little out of your comfort zone, and go make a video background with Paul. All
Cool.
right.
All right. I think we are ready to start prototyping some of these things out. So I think the first one we'll start with, and should be pretty easy, is now I'm thinking is doing these calendars. But I'm just starting to think if there's, well, we'll keep it simple for now, and we'll kind of we'll get a little bit more complicated, not complicated, a little bit more detailed in the way some of the animations we want to do.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
gonna rename some of these boards for us just so it's a little simple. So,
yeah,
uh,
that would be good.
start of day. Again, just anything you can do as you start building this out helps with that because in the prototype mode, when you start linking artboards, it's easier to know Cade's calendar or uh, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on your daughter's name again.
Marlena.
Oh, so the D that didn't throw me off. I was like, it's
Yeah,
not a
that was
D. Who
Marlena.
is
Sorry.
this? Okay. Well, I'm used to calling her Tasha. So,
Yeah, that wow,
anyways,
that's
that totally threw me. But yeah, it's a lot easier to now organize these boards after they've been named and the layers are all set. So that's a good step. And then we'll jump into prototype mode here.
sounds good. Okay, so um, let's just start linking some of these different items up. I know that this calendar needs to go to this one. So let's go to prototype mode. Really easily, we can just drag it over. And then you've got the different options here on the right. So a tap is what we want. The type, it can be a transition, which just allows us to dissolve, and we can choose from a variety of options here. Maybe we could slide it right or left. But sometimes it's fun just to see what auto animate does. And it may not look like anything different, but just for fun, we're going to click that. Yeah. So there's not a lot changes there, but sometimes if you've got some different things moving around, sometimes you have some happy accidents that
A little Bob Ross moment there.
yeah, some happy accidents. Happy is it happy accidents? He's got the happy trees. We have
The,
happy accidents.
yeah, I think.
Um so then we'll do the same thing with all these. So this one I know goes here, and this one will not be tappable. So this one goes to this calendar. This one is not tappable, and this one will go back here. So really quickly, it looks complicated, but it's really not that bad. So we've got all of those options, and I didn't do these ones yet. So this one will go here, and this one will go here.
Yep. So you're just linking
So,
up all the possibilities of where
yep,
this could
yep,
go.
exactly. So we can test that by clicking this play button, and let's bring this over to the middle of the screen. And so we should be able to kind of just cycle through. And the reason we change,
Evan, I think because you're only sharing your XD window,
oh, you
that we
can't see.
can't see the preview. So you might need to switch that.
Oh, let me do that quick.
Yeah.
See if this works. Nope, that is not it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Sorry. There, now I bet you can see it.
Yep. Now we can see it. Perfect.
Okay, so now that we've got that prototyped, we can click through, and it just really quickly changes those calendar items. Um, and see that how that one slid up because it must be in a different location. That's kind of that auto animate thing, which is kind of fun actually. So we could maybe do some more with that if we wanted. Otherwise, um, if we want to switch back, let's go back to this screen. Um, we can also just change that transition type. So I think for now, we'll just change all of them to transition.
Oh, and we're still on the preview, I believe. Oh no, I'm sorry. I see it correctly. I'm watching the stream on my left hand side and OBS in front of me, so I'm
Gotcha, I
mixing
switched
them
it.
up.
All good. So yeah, we'll just go through and make sure we'll change those to transition, and maybe we'll come back to that and play with them a little bit more. But
Yeah, and
until
definitely go explore. Like auto animate is fantastic because it's going to automatically do some cool things. But you might want to see and test out the different ones and what the easing in or easing out. Do you want things to bounce or kind of like, you know, fluctuate and whatnot? There's a lot of possibilities with this, and we use XD all the time. If you go over and check out our Dribble page, like 90% of the animations that we do on our team Dribble page, dribble.com/unfold, most of it is done in XD versus After Effects because we can in like 30 to 60 seconds create those animations versus needing to do it in XD and having it be something that is versus After Effects. That's something that's much more complicated and we need like every layer in there. XD is fantastic for these quick interactions.
okay. I just want to try something here quick.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I think Munir was asking about process. So, for us, we always start figuring out what the functional requirements of any project or a product might be, whether that's an app or a website, and then moving into, after talking with the development team and ensuring capabilities and whatnot of items, moving into wireframes and really figuring out what all the components and interactions for an application need to be. And then through design, just as you guys are seeing, through this process from yesterday, that's where we get to start playing around with, different ideas, and also, still building and improving the UX along the way. We might wireframe something out and think it's dialed in, but as we start actually putting, the dressing or filling out the house with the furniture, we start moving things around again. We still need to have a bed and a couch and a chair in that room, but we start moving where those components are, until we like the overall layout and it feels nice and zen. And that's hopefully a good analogy for putting projects like this together.
Okay, so I'm just kind of playing around here to figure out what the best way to do this is. Initially, I was thinking that it would just be its own screen, but now I'm kind of starting to wonder if it's just better to create it as, oops, let's click this and,
Does it still need to be an artboard?
oh yeah, I bet you're right. Let's create that, which I have to be in design mode for. Okay, we'll see how that works. And let's ungroup those quick so that I can select those easier. So we'll have this element will link. It's going to be a tap, and it will be an overlay, and the animation is slide up. So I think I need to select that though. Okay. And let's give that a shot, which I will have to change my screen, I know. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see
You
it.
should be able to. Cool. So now we've got that block linked up. If we click this, that little drawer slides up. Now, the only thing I'm noticing is we lost our drop shadow, and I'm guessing that that is because, let me switch back again quick. That is because our artboard is cutting that off, would be my guess. So let's drag this down. Let's go to design mode, drag this down, and we're not really losing anything down there. So let's just see if that makes a difference. So I'm gonna go back here, select this artboard, hit play, and switch my screen. So we've got that again. And if we tap that, now we've got that drop shadow up there again. So really easily, we just kind of threw that drawer in there. So whenever they have this option in here, we've got this add block, and it kind of brings this overlay up. And then we could start to play around with some different options in here, and some of those interactions. But the nice thing is, because this add block, we can get a little bit more intentional about how we want to handle that, so that we don't have to hopefully re prototype that every time. I believe if we make this a component and tie this interaction to the component, we can.
Oh, I lost your share there for a second. But you guys can all bask in the glorious beard for a moment. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. All
Or do I
right,
have to
we're
go back
back up.
again? Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can, I think we can grab that and it'll be applied to all of them. I can't remember for sure if that's the case, but let's give it a shot and see what happens. So we've got, let's see, prototype. Yeah, that's that one. Actually, I bet if we just duplicate this, we will be in the same shape. So I'm going to delete that one. Say we've got it there again. Go to prototype, and I lied. Let's go back to design. If I make this a component, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So because we had that animation tied to this, and we created a component out of that, this add block container. Now, when we duplicate that, this is still an instance of that one up there. And so that prototype is still there. So the nice thing is we should be able to grab that and place it on these. I think it might, I guess I don't even know if I tried moving it from artboard to artboard before, but I have faith in XD. And yeah, it's still there. So that's the nice thing is we don't have to go through and change all of those. We can really easily just kind of duplicate that instance, and then we've got all of those things tied to it. And just to show that, oops, I got to change my screen here so we can try it. So hit play, new screen share, and select this one. So we've got this block, and we can click on it again here.
That's
And it's
awesome.
in both of those places. And now hopefully, I think I did it on this one. It does the same thing. So
Very
really quickly, we
smooth.
were able to add that to all of those screens. And we really only had to do it once, and then we just copied and pasted it into all those other ones.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's so important to do these things where, like we said, you almost take a step backwards and it moves slower having to set these things up as components. But by doing that, it allowed you to have that same interaction, that same prototype in multiple locations versus if you had to go and one by one link any of these items up. That's a huge, huge time saver.
Right. Yep. And I would guess that because all of these are tied to this master here, whatever we change there in the prototype, let's just try it just for fun. Let's change it to, what could we change? Well, we could have it slide down, which would be really weird, but let's just do it for fun anyways to see if it changes in all of these. So let's click play. Yep, that is weird, but let's change it quick just for the sake of, so you can see here, that one changed. And if we switch calendar, it's coming in from the top. So again, you're able to kind of control all of those prototype and animations from that single component.
Super cool.
Okay, cool. So one other thing, just for fun, I'm thinking since we've got a little bit of time yet, is I kind of want to see, and I don't know that I've even tried yet, is I want to play with some auto animate within these different states. So let's try that. So we'll go back to our design mode, and I'm thinking that maybe we'll design from this default state to the selected. Maybe we'll have to see how that works, but let's just play with it and see what happens. So I think if I click this, I can change. Let's see. I know there's a way to do it. So we can do that. And maybe it's on hover. Oops, let's get out of prototype mode once.
And so what are you trying to do here?
I was going to try and use auto animate to animate in between the different states.
Mm.
And like I said, I haven't tried it, so maybe it was a bad idea, but I'm going to forge on for now and see if we can figure this out. So selected and default, and let's prototype, click that, and I want auto animate. You know what? That might be all I have to do actually.
It says choose an
Let's,
artboard or state there. I don't know if that got selected fully.
oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that was my problem.
click
Hold
and
on, let me
drag
do
it, maybe? Yeah. Or go back to default.
this. Auto animate. Oh, I didn't see the state. Beautiful. Okay, that's what I want. So we're gonna do that. I don't know what the auto animate will exactly look like. I don't need this guy. That was my problem because I just didn't have the auto animate selected. So now we've got that. We've created that little tap, auto animate. Let's see what that looks like. And then we could customize it from there, but I just want to see where it's at currently. So we'll hit play and you can't see it yet. So I'll share my screen and maybe.
So it's subtle. You know, I
Yeah,
don't think that one in
like,
particular is going to be too different. But if you were to do
yep.
something like, say, with some, oh, if you can switch your thing back there, and there we go.
Sorry, my screen share killed again for a second.
All good. Yeah, if you were to say do like icons, you know, where maybe there's a light bulb and then like the
Yeah.
light shifts or it turns on, you would see more of a like movement and
Oh, and
shift.
you know what else? The other reason we probably did that is, or didn't, is because we did not pay attention to our layer names. So it might do even more if we make sure this is kind of a bad. Well, let's go with background. Oh, maybe it won't make a difference, but I want to see.
Mm. But I think still here it's just like it's a quick color
Oh, they're all
shift transition, you know.
sure.
We're not moving like
We could
larger
change the
items.
size too. Just say the size changes
Hmm.
just for fun. And I'm not on the right one, so let's hit play. Yeah, it's pretty subtle. Whoops, where did it go? Okay, well, we'll ignore that for now and we'll move on. And I'm thinking we can go through and just kind of show what some of these different options would be by tapping through these.
Yeah. And this is something where again, this is because prototyping in XD is so simple and easy to do, this is one of those items that I would encourage you all. One, it's great to test. Like you should always be using the XD Mirror app on your phone as well, so that as you're designing, it's actually
Yeah.
pulling those things up on your mobile device, because then you can get to really see it in situation, what it's like, interact with it, and tap. And I'm telling you all, you will blow your clients out of the water if you can hand them a phone in a meeting and say, here, play with the app, and like actually get them to feel and experience what it is and say, hey, I want you to create a new block here. I want you to change it from a 60-minute to a 30-minute time period and change the color to pink. And if they can actually scroll through and interact with this and do that, you're going to knock their socks off every time. And that's the kind of thing that will take a design from maybe you get a little client pushback or something like that. They're going to see it and truly get to interact. And they'll be like, yeah, this is doing exactly what I want it to. You can never rely on the client or even a team just getting it. Let them experience it, and don't say, oh, well, you do this and that's obvious. No, do some cool interactions, do some cool auto animate stuff, and let your app come to life to where you can build an application that literally feels like it is a fully developed app within XD, and that is amazing.
Yeah. So one thing we're gonna do is I don't know if you saw or not, but basically I went back to our master component because I know all those things are tied to this one. And so I thought, well, let's just set up that interaction there. So went here, went to prototype mode, click this little plus button where we've got that option, click tap, change it to auto animate or transition, doesn't matter. We'll just leave it on auto animate for now, and then select that state that you want to animate to when it is tapped. So just click that selected. So now we've got that set. So then we've got within here, I'm gonna hit play and I'll share my screen with you quick, um, just to showcase this really quickly. Okay, And then, so now we've got these, and you'll see that I can click it once, but I can't click it again because we have to update that main component. I didn't animate the selected to the default. I only animated from the default to the selected. And obviously you can see also that the time changes. And so that is a result of this screen where we're going to go into the design mode. And because the main all these are tied to the main component, these other states are still tied to that. And we only, when we updated this instance, we only updated that default state. So we'll go through really quickly and update these.
And live collab, I'm gonna help you out with that space. See? So easy. So easy. And yeah, I believe you do need a USB cable to mirror. Um, you should still be able to do an Android phone to Mac. I could be wrong, but uh,
Yeah, you can. I've got a Pixel and that worked.
yeah.
So let's go through selected. This has got to be 30 minutes.
One of these days, I'm gonna convince my wife that I like have to own a Pixel for design purposes, but I'm not pulling that like two phone purchase
Oh
card
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I enjoy my Pixel, but I'll be honest, there are things I miss about the iPhone too. Because
Yeah,
I had an iPhone before this, so I think they're both good. They're just different, and it's really mostly a matter of preference.
totally.
So
I got a
selected.
Chromebook. That was a game changer for me. That's a cool little device. Super cheap. Can still do so much on there.
So let's make sure what you're going. So the other thing I'm going to pay attention to is I know the size has changed a little bit. So real easily, it's convenient that these dimensions are right below the state. So I know on the default state, the width is 96. So on this, it should be 96 as well. And I'm just going to, because I know these should be centered. Actually, I'm going to just leave it for now. These ones we could change. So the default is 96. Let's make this 96. And I'm going to guess that that one is 96 as well. And we'll just update all of those really quick. Okay. So we've updated all of those, but now I want to make sure that we don't show all of them as that at once. So let's change these back to the default state for now.
While you're doing that, I know Val just gave a shout out, but we've got about 15 minutes left until the challenge feedback deadline. So if you have not yet, make sure you tag us in or Adobe XD Discord server, and we'll go through some stuff. If you've got some projects too from uh, previously in this current daily creative challenge series that you want us to take a look at, go ahead and tag us in those too. I've got Drew loaded up and a couple of others, and we'll just kind of scroll up through there and pick out a few more that we want to review. But if you're here on the stream and you've been participating in that DCC, definitely tag me. I'm at Peter Deltondo in the Discord, and we'll have those pulled up and ready to go over in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so we so we altered all of those. I went back into this main component, changed the selected state animation from a tap auto animate, and selected the destination as state. So you can kind of see the options here between default and input. And because this is the selected one, so I selected the default. So now all of those should have kind of preset all of these animations. So if I go to one of these screens that is going to bring this on as an overlay, these little guys are still tappable as well. And let me share my screen quick again just to showcase that. So we've got the whole thing here. We'll click this add block. I changed it back so it goes from the bottom. And because our text isn't aligned perfectly, we can go back and fix it. Otherwise, it's kind of fun to be able to see how auto animate changes some of those things. So we've got all of those options. So now, really quickly, we've got all of those things as tappable. So
That's awesome.
super cool.
Yeah, and what's cool, I mean, again, as you guys see that the ability to take this further and do more with it, I mean, you could very easily, I'll come over here to my screen for a second, while you switch over again, Evan, is that through this, I mean, there's so much to animate here. And you look at this and we can say, okay, well, clearly I'm going to select different times. You can set these things to scroll kind of side to side so you can swipe. We can have the next button advance to the next screen. And then even though here we've essentially got, we'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens, we can animate this to have so many different interactions to where I could click on different times. I can go back, I can go forward, I can switch between people's profiles. I could design another screen that has a swipeable calendar to where I could advance to the next week and you could see what that looks like. You can come in here and again, I can interact with the days of the week. I can have an input. I can change the color. And in these 6 screens, you could design or you could prototype something that feels as though there's 50 interactions to interact with and prototype and get a feel for. And that's what's so cool about this is that you can easily and quickly, in about 3 hours, Evan has put this together between yesterday and today. And we've got a functioning prototype. And that is just so cool to be able to do this. And I'm excited for you all to dive more into XD, discover these different features and learn what you can do and where you can take things because this is like just a total game changer for building out, designing, prototyping, and testing designs. And again, it's just so helpful to get that immediate feedback, that immediate approval, hopefully from your clients when they get to sit down and experience how your app actually works rather than flipping through some like old school InVision documents and pages and like not really getting it. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I know it's cleaned up a lot of extra stuff for us. Because the other thing too is a lot of times if you've got all those other screens that you have to build out and then you show a client, it's really easy for them to get kind of lost and bogged down between where everything is. And so it's just another way to kind of clean that up and keep it easy and digestible for the client.
Hmm.
But they're still able to kind of see the benefits of all of those things when they actually go to prototype mode
Yeah,
and
that's a
see
good
that.
point. I feel like oftentimes if you were to just send this file to a client and they're
Yeah.
like, there's so many screens. Like, look at there's prototyping arrows everywhere. What is this chaos? To us, it makes sense, but we have to remember, and something that I know Evan and I do a lot is like we'll show what we're designing to, relatives or like our spouse. My wife is my ultimate beta tester. I will hand her something that I'm working on, and if she can't immediately understand it and figure it out, then I'm looking at it going, hey, a typical average user can't understand this. I need to simplify some things and whatnot. So it's really good too to pass your work around, whether that's to other design friends, whether it's to just some people that you know, and get that kind of feedback because we tend to get so laser focused and overly familiar with what we're working on that sometimes we don't see the problems or the holes and we need that outside opinion. So really, really recommend doing stuff like that. And yes, again, Evan, props on this, man. This is a very short period of time to get a lot of work done. So really cool to see that come together so quickly.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fun, and obviously, I mean, a lot of it is XD makes a lot of those different things easy, and there's just and you can do so much more with it, like you were saying, but even in the short amount of time, it just makes working efficiently a lot easier. So
Yeah. Well, I'm curious here in chat, what are some of of your favorite features in XD, and what are some of the features that you might be looking for in the future? What are things that if you guys haven't yet, I think it's the user voice forums, and maybe Val can pull that one up. But Adobe is so really on top of the user feedback and listening to people, and that's something that Honestly, I got to experience very differently being a part of some of the Adobe Max groups and being up there in the San Francisco office at the streams. It's very easy to say, hey, Adobe's a big company and these things are getting lost somewhere. But no, they're like the teams of people. Every time we go up for a stream, we sit down with the teams, we go over these products. They're listening to everything. So I really encourage you to, tag them on Twitter, to go to user voice, to leave them feedback. This team is so reactive and truly and deeply cares about building the best possible product out there. So I encourage you, if you feel like anything is missing or things that you would love to see, reach out to them, have a discussion. I know all the project managers there, and I've never had an instance where if there's something that you want to chat through or an idea you have, someone will listen to you. Somebody will hop on a call and hear that out. So it's a very, very reactive team. I highly encourage you jump into that community too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So yeah, let's go through the last of this, Evan, if there's something you want to show, and then maybe we can move into doing some of the portfolio reviews.
Yeah, for sure. So last thing I was just trying to do is I was just trying to link up all of these screens. So I've got this one linked up to this one, and was intentional about the transition, knowing we want to slide these in left to right kind of. And this one obviously can go back. So it just feels a little bit more natural. And then the last thing I wanted to do is I've got, just so that I can go back to these screens if I wanted to, I just made this whole artboard um, clickable basically to go back in case I wanted to view these, so I don't get here and get stuck if I'm
Cool.
presenting to a client or whatever. I think you can always use your arrow keys, but a lot of times just being able to click is a little bit easier. So let's slide right, and this is the same. So slide right. So really quickly, let me switch my screen again. And so I've got what time does your morning begin? All of these, because we did that work on that main component, all of these are clickable. If we have more time, we could make this so that you could drag this across if you wanted to see more times, but you click next. Then it brings that in from the right. And then what time would you like to be in bed each night? You could click that. Obviously, probably not 8 a.m. unless you're working the night shift. So, but we could tweak that.
Yeah. And
But
part of
also,
the thought process on that one was that by asking those two questions, we just say, what time does your day start? What time does your day end? And then we can
yep,
assume that time is sleep, but everything in between, we're going to have those blocks where people
exactly.
are going to fill in their schedule.
Yep. So we can still go back or we can go forward. And so now we're landed kind of within this calendar view. And obviously this one's already filled out because we did that. But if we wanted to add a block here, we still get that. So now everything um, is linked up and is connected. And like I said, I made it so you can click here in case I wanted to be able to go back
Yeah.
just to be able to show that again and talk through that. But yeah, that's kind of I think everything for now.
That's awesome. And we were asking chat, what's your favorite feature? And folks were saying auto animate. And, I think that's the same for me. That's, I think something that XD is excelling at really, really heavily. Um, the other one, while it feels like less of a feature, is just the snappiness and responsiveness of this app.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
again,
it's
hundreds of screens could be in here. And I know folks that have mentioned like they've had files with 800 screens and it doesn't interact any differently than if there were 10. And that's something that just to the development and engineering team for XD, like it's amazing how that works because
yeah.
there's a lot going on in a lot of these files. And to me, auto animate. If you take a look at the file from Adobe Max from 2 years ago, the demo file when that like really had just come out is still one of my favorite files to tinker around with, and how they've got like play buttons and how the playhead like morphs into a different shape
Yeah,
into an
yeah,
object. Like it is so cool to see how this stuff gets built out. And again, just the possibilities that you can do with it. Go check out letsxd.com and everything, and learn a little bit more about those specifically. That's a great kind of sandbox to learn from. Um, okay, cool. And why don't we switch over to my screen and I will take a look at a couple of these projects. I'm going to pull up one from I think Danning is Gummy Panda. I always remember seeing that name. He's always doing the DDCs. I love that. And we've got a couple more, one from Julia here and a few others. So let's jump into these projects. I'll switch over to my screen here. And Evan, if you would leave your screen share up on my end, because it'll
Yep.
break less stuff with where I've got you on the Zoom windows. And let's switch over. Let me go to my Chrome. Here we go. Okay, cool. So let's start. I know yesterday's challenge was designing a desktop dashboard that requires scrolling and add anchor links that serve as navigation aids. And so this looks like it's building on some of the other items from this challenge. So here, starting with this one, and I think this was Drew's, if I'm not mistaken. So let's take a look at this. We are staying connected on the go. This looks to be something in the construction space. Okay, go back home. I don't know what else is clickable. That might. So I think we're just anchor linking with these objects. It's not necessarily changing the screen itself. Yeah, so I think this one needs to be built out a little bit more. But Evan, why don't you go ahead and give some feedback and
Yeah.
critique on the overall dashboard here?
Yeah. I think overall it looks like amount of white space, the way you've kind of got things balanced and laid out. You've got a good use in just the space and the way you've got the screen divided up, where you've got the favorites under the my products. I feel like that stuff is easy to it's easy to digest the whole screen. Some places where I think maybe you could improve a little bit is the actual labels for each of those locations. I think could benefit from a little bit more white space vertically. Just space those things out a little bit more
Hmm.
would make them a lot easier to read and whatnot. But overall, I think it's really clean. And yeah,
Yeah, I think there's some areas that are like really nice and airy. Like over here, there's a ton of space, but then this stuff gets really crammed. The search box area, like I probably wouldn't have that any smaller than say 40, 48 pixels tall. Usually you see input fields anywhere between like 40 to maybe 56, 64 on the high side. Uh, but I agree, just giving everything a little bit more room to breathe. And then over here, in terms of fuel consumption, like I have no clue what the consumption
yeah,
is. Like I need some data points here to help understand that. Uh, but just in terms of laying things out on the page, I like the way it's broken down. I'm able to easily absorb this information. Um, maybe a little bit less here, or that this is something that I could dismiss, and maybe it takes up the whole space and then goes away and moves up because we're kind of using like prime real estate up there too. Oh, the map and charts have animations. Oh, here we go. Okay. I don't know what to click on. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's nice and clean. I really like that. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, really nice job here. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. So this is day 4. So one, two, three, 4. Component states. Design custom charts for a desktop dashboard. So awesome. Let's jump in here. So Nook's Cranny Update. Turnips. I have little kids, and so I think of that book every time, like the one where they bake a cake and all he wants is a turnip. I'm That's my brain these days. Okay, so back to this stuff. Let's check this out. I think, is this for Animal Crossing? I think it is. I don't play it, but I've seen enough that I think that's what this is.
that looks like the style for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, cool. So I'm getting an update on an item, analytics about turnips. Super cool. There's different events here. Click on this. Okay, I don't think there's anything in that yet. Whoops. Where did I go? Okay, so coming back here. I mean, overall, I think this is really nice. It feels a little busy to me, but I think that's just part of there is a lot going on, and I think it fits the overall mood and style pretty well. But let me know what your thoughts are here, Evan.
Yeah, yeah, I think same thing. Like one, if this is for Animal Crossing, obviously you fit the style. And I think it's a tough thing to balance when you've got, that very like whimsical, playful style,
Hmm.
but you want things to feel like anchored and structured. So I think it does a pretty good job of that, especially with that kind of funky typeface that it is. Um, but yeah, I would agree if there's anything you can do to try to like clean up and add a little bit more white space just so it doesn't feel so busy.
Hmm.
Maybe some of those icons on the far right, the different fish or bugs, um, if there's maybe shrinking those down a little bit more. Um, the description under visiting for Sahara and Gulliver. I don't know if you, and part of it is I'm not as familiar with enough with the game to know what is critical and what's not. But if there's any of those like cleaning up things that you can do, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, I think also if you could maybe like remove the pattern background,
Yeah,
that
I
is
wondered about
creating some
that.
busyness. Everything has a shadow on it. The other would be simplifying the typography. So you've got this type here, which is a little wild and crazy, and then still large. You've got like premium item, turnip prices. If you could shrink these down and then use different colors, which it is slightly different, I can tell, but it's very um, slight, is that would help distinguish a lot of things. But right now it feels like there's a lot of large and kind of loud things. And so simplifying that, creating more differentiation between those items will help those not feel as like overwhelming and allow you to process more one thing at a time. Um,
Yeah,
like I think that would help with because I don't mind personally the size of some of these items. However, it does feel like a lot with everything else going on. But if you shrunk stuff down, things can be spaced out more and given a little bit more breathing room. So, uh, yeah, just play around with some stuff.
yep. I even wonder if like that left sidebar could be, um, if we could make it white, if that would help bring in a
Mm,
little bit more like just cleanliness or simplify it a little bit more. I know it's like the style of that game is a little bit warmer, and so I know that's intentional. But I just would wonder what that would look like if it would help clean things up a little bit too.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know anything about this game other than I see everybody talking about it.
Yep.
But
Same.
okay, let's check this one out. So we've got a golf club member account dashboard. All right, this is my zone. I went to college for golf. So Marina Zago here. So we're not going to be able to interact with this, but we get to see our dashboard. So maybe Evan, walk us through as you're processing this. Like, what do you understand this to be? Because that's what I'm immediately here first trying to figure out.
Health club member account dashboard. So I would guess that this is like maybe a member login. If you're at a golf course, if you have a basically a way to manage your online membership, I'm assuming member benefits is maybe you gain points and are able to use those points for certain purchases based on how many time you play there. Um, I think a lot of the elements and components are pretty clear. The only thing that I'm a little confused by is game statistics. Um, is I don't know exactly contextually what those two graphs are showing me. What is the total games played and well, I can't read the other one.
Games won and total games played.
Got it. Games won. Okay. Um, so I guess that's interesting, but part of me would guess that knowing what your actual score for a round of golf would be as much or more helpful. But again, um, it might depend on what benefit that gets you, I guess, or
Yeah,
maybe
I would
points
agree.
based
I want to
on
know like
wins.
what my handicap is from
Yeah,
each match. Like what is my score? But it looks like maybe this is like tournament style, but I would expect the chart to be more like ping-ponging up and down rather than like a slow gradual curve because they're not in total correlation with each other. Or like a bar chart or something like that. I feel like it's the wrong graph type.
yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe even if there was a dashboard that actually had, or a piece of that graph that had specific numbers in it, that would maybe there would be some um, additional options that could just provide a little bit more context for it. And maybe then there's that, but
Yeah.
yeah, overall, like, design in general is clean. One thing I would do, or that's bothering me a little bit, is that graph. Is I want that I call it a component, that module. I want that bottom to line up with the
Yep.
bottom of chat
Yeah, I
and
see
the name.
that here too. I want like these two items to be even here, and then this one to pull down a little bit further. I totally agree with that. Uh, but I mean, I dig the color palette that you've chosen here. Like Akin said, it's kind of classy, it's luxurious. It's got those like hints of green, which, golf. Um, a couple of things that I see is the team is like 15 people, so I'm a little confused by that. I totally get member benefits. I wish I could be golfing 9 times this week. Uh, and it's cool here to see. I don't know if hours would be right, unless this is like a video game of golf versus like real golf. But I think it's real golf because you say here who lost a card near the main entrance. But over here on the left hand side, I think you could do a little bit more work on this because like I don't understand what the add button here would be
Yeah, I
doing.
was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, like I get statistics, I get chat or messages, updates. I think you could downplay settings and logout, uh, just so it feels a little bit less busy in a sense. But
Mm-hmm.
overall here, I mean, design wise, this is
Yeah, I was.
up there. We're picking at like the UX of things at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say visually, like, I feel like it works really well. It's good balance of spacing and white space. Got good hierarchy. Your buttons are identifiable and easy to see. Those are clear. It's just, yeah, kind of some of those more nitpicky UX things. Like, I think could kind of push it another level. So
Yeah, definitely. All right, well let's jump into a couple more of these. So let's check out this one here from Julia. So, gosh, I haven't eaten lunch, and everyone starts throwing donuts and like avocado tacos, and oh man, I'm so hungry right now. Uh, okay, so let's see. This one is for cooking inspiration. I'm getting hungrier by the moment as we go through this. We've got our popular recipes this week. How did your recipes arrive? Your stars on your recipes? I'm a little confused by that one. How did your recipes arrive? I'm guessing that's like if you upload your recipes, how well did they do? Maybe it's a language thing there and how that's being explained, but that feels
might be
odd to
how
me.
did your recipes turn out too?
Mm. Oh, or like your recipes arrive? Okay. No, it's
Like the
got to be
whole
cooking
Pinterest fail.
inspirations.
That's how my recipes would arrive.
Gotcha. Okay. So we've got our saved dishes there on the side. That's cool. You've got 13 recipes. Lots of followers. You're following 76 people. You're leveling up. Cool. I like the gamification of this.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Shauna, 20 more minutes and we can eat. Fantastic. Okay, so cool. We've got our dashboard. You might be able to do some fun stuff with the iconography here. Like I totally get the second one, maybe being the recipe itself, account settings, log out. But like maybe on this one, it could be a food item or a chef hat or something. Just another little item to push that out. But any other thoughts here, Evan?
Yeah, I think the only other one I can think of right now is that I wonder if that kind of, I'll call it like a peach color, if maybe this could benefit from removing one of the peach section, not removing the section, but changing the color. Like, I kind of wonder what those popular recipes would look like if the background was white and they had like a drop shadow. I
Hmm.
feel like it might help add a little bit of depth, and again, just kind of direct the user and make sure that there's a hierarchy, whereas everything, it feels a little bit flat right now.
Yeah.
But again, that's pretty nitpicky. Like, overall, I think it's super clean.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love when we get nitpicky. It means that something is good, and we're just helping like forge it through the fire just a little bit
Yep.
more.
Yep.
Um, and all right, let's scroll up here. Let's see what this one is from Mark. All right. This looks like fantasy baseball, right? Fantasy, all the sports. All right, Evan, this is your zone. So why
I
don't you kick us off?
Sure. So I'm just looking through. So we've got your avatar on the left, teams, 1,030 games played, 57,000. That's a lot of games. Friends, -7. I don't know what that means. If you aren't very friendly or what. So I feel like I think that the placement of those statistics is good. Like it helps to have that by the avatar. I think just providing a little bit more context of what those mean um, would be helpful. Recent trades, Tom Brady for Golden Tate. Yeah. So I'll talk about two ways: visually first, and then kind of talk about some more of those UX things because others I think I'm going to be jumping back forth. Visually, I think the way you've got the screen divided is pretty solid. I've noticed that there are some things that are rounded, some things that are square. I think if you make that a little bit more consistent, that it'll feel more intentional, and will just kind of help make everything be a little more cohesive.
Yep.
I'm also seeing some drop shadow on like that left sidebar. You've got the avatar and the statistics right above recent trades. I think I'd remove that drop shadow and just find a different way to divide those two sections, just because you don't have any of that overlapping or layering anywhere else. And again, it's just a way to kind of make the whole thing feel stronger. The other comment I would make is the background is kind of that tan. I think if you make that white, everything pops a lot more. It's just a good way to bring all that out a little bit more. I like that you've got the different sports represented, and you kind of got those avatars. And with the last one being a number, you kind of got an idea of. I'm assuming that's how many people have commented, or maybe those are the most recent people that have commented on it. I like that visually. And then having that graph at the bottom is really helpful, knowing the points by team, and just kind of being able to track that because I know that I'm assuming this is the dashboard. So having that access is really nice. Um, so that's visually, I think it works really well. I think there's just a little bit of tweaking you could do.
Hmm.
But then from the UX or contextually, I think maybe a little bit more clarity on what the different sections are. The recent trades, I don't know if those are live trades or if those are fantasy trades, like between two teams or between one fantasy team and another, or if it's actual trades and like it's live news, so you want to stay up to date with that. Um, and Tom Brady to the Bucks. So that's a football player to a basketball team. That would be some big news. Um, so like that's kind of interesting, but I feel like the location of that could maybe be pulled into that recent trades, or maybe there's a news section for it. Um, but yeah, like overall, I think it's really good. I think just providing a little bit more context, and if there's some different things that you can group together to do that, I think you're in good shape.
Yeah. And I'll come in with a couple of things. I think Evan hit almost everything there that I had as well. One quick reminder, we've got about 10 minutes left. So if there's any questions that you guys have, let us know in chat. We'll try to answer them here as we go. But a couple of things that I see on this one is one, the dashboard, or not the dashboard, the navigation is on the right side, which is very uncommon for most applications. So just from a familiarity standpoint, getting people
Sure.
easily accustomed to using your application, think about those things because people are used to top navs or left side navs. Those are most common. So just a small thing there. It doesn't really change much. You would just kind of reverse what you've got. And then it threw me a little bit that the photo here is different than the photo
I was just
here.
gonna mention that. Yep.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I think you could do some more icon choices. It looks like this gets enlarged when it's selected, but like leaders, I might recommend more of a podium or like a trophy system. Teams, I think works. Locations. This feels like more of a map or a GPS. So maybe there's a different icon that could be utilized to be a little bit simpler as well. Videos works really well. I feel like the chart here is again the wrong type of graph. If it's weekly fantasy points by team, these are all different items. So maybe it's a bar chart or it's like avatars on something that might make a little bit more sense, but just something to think about. Um, and then lastly, just from a presentation standpoint, I would recommend varying a couple of these so that like maybe one only has three or change up the faces a little bit more. I know that they are
Yeah.
somewhat, but it makes it feel truly more unique and like this is in a real situation versus a quick mock-up. So that's something that I would do as well, just to work on that a little bit too.
Hmm.
Um,
And I see Raphael in chat is asking a question about padding. Should card components with different shapes still have the same padding? Um, I guess I would to give a I guess short answer is I would keep them consistent. I would say um, if the card components have a different shape, then I would just make sure that they have a different shape for a reason. Otherwise, I would try to keep things as consistent as possible. Again, like 8 point grid makes it really easy to come up with some of those standards and guidelines. But in general, I would try to make things consistent across the board, unless they're intentionally different for a different reason, whether it's to bring attention to something or otherwise. But in general, yeah, I would say padding should generally be the same. Now, if you're talking padding from a component standpoint, or like let's say you've got a card with text on the bottom and the text, the amount of a copy at the bottom of that component changes. um, Again, it might just depend on the scenario for that UI element. If you've got space to expand it, then maybe it makes sense to keep the padding from the bottom of the shape to the text 40 point across. Otherwise, it might make more sense to keep it the exact same height for all of them, but just kind of truncate some of that text and kind of add an ellipse or read more or something where you can expand or contract that
yeah.
component.
And something I was going to say too is that, like, again, just working in increments within a specific system, like,
Yep.
as long as things are consistent. So here I've got 16 by 16 through most of this. That feels good. You could have something underneath it that is like 32. Again, as long as there's almost like a rhythm to it,
Yep. Exactly.
that's what you're looking for. Things can be different. Not everything has to be the exact same number, but by following that standardized spacing, whether it's we like an 8 pixel grid, but whether it's a 5 or a 10 or whatnot, as long as there's consistency, it makes it a lot easier to work with.
Yep.
Um,
For sure.
yeah. And Munir, I'll put together a book list for books about UX design. There's a ton out there, and we'll share a couple in the XD group. So if keep an eye on that, I'll post it in pro tips. There's some good resources for that stuff. And then Ed is asking about shadows. Um, so we're pretty against drop shadows for the most part. I think you shouldn't use them, especially on text and things like that. But if you want to do a shadow for something here, like if I just use the default shadow, it's not super great. But what we typically will do is we'll come in here and we might bump that up here. So like you see, I throw it up to like 40. It's really, really subtle. And I might even come in and I might tweak some things here with like the opacity. And rather than have this be really heavy, I'm going to bring it down so it's super light. And I might take it, I'm again, increments of 8. I tend to work like 8, 16, etc. But now that shadow here is super subtle, but it's just enough to give this white box on top of a white background enough of a distinction to stand out and then put content within that. And you could do the same thing when it comes to like if this were a button and maybe we want to use like a purple color. Let's do something, or maybe like a pink like this will kind of go roughly unfold colors. And if I wanted to come in and apply that color to that shadow, I might come in here and now I can make that. What you often see is people do this where it's like super punchy, it's in your face, and I tend to drop things down a little bit. We want that to hang a little bit lower. Again, I might go maybe as much as like 16, and then I'm going to bring down this opacity and I want it to be super subtle. And what I'm looking for is like almost unnoticeable, but that gives it just a little bit of shading to where, again, it pops off. It feels a little bit unique, but it's very gentle. If you do it too much, it just doesn't feel right, and you kind of have that immediate like, ooh, I don't like where that's going. Um, but yeah, someone was asking too, if you check out the Discord and you go into pro tips, there's a ton of stuff in here. I know I've posted a ton of things about like 8 pixel grid systems and accessibility in here. Howard's got some stuff. We're just going to ignore this neomorphism thing. Don't pay attention to that article. We'll stay away from that debate on this stream, but like just don't do it. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. And anyways, we'll show that there and take a peek. But let's see if we can't squeeze in another review or two and go to the current challenge. Let me see if I missed any questions here.
One other thing I was going to mention about the drop shadow too is just like kind of a little hack too is like by default, if you want to add a drop shadow to a shape, you would just click on that sidebar. Sometimes it can be helpful to
Here,
create.
Evan, I'll switch to your screen if you want to show.
Yeah, yeah,
And I like Howard's advice. Just blur the crap out of it.
yeah. I mean, yeah, in a way, like don't be afraid to like get pretty large with the numbers and whatnot. So let me know when they're back on my
Hmm.
screen. We're good.
They're there, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, normally to add a drop shadow, you can just click this little side button and it will expand it straight from that shape. Sometimes it can be kind of a nice effect if you only want it to be more on the bottom and not so much on the sides. Is I'll just create a separate shape that's just a little bit narrower or not quite as wide, and then that way you can adjust the actual position of that shadow a little bit more. So I can drag that down. I might to grab the one behind it, and then you can play with exactly where that drop shadow comes in at. So
Yep.
sometimes that can be helpful too, just to have a little bit more control with it. Um, and it's just a little bit of a hack, and sometimes adds a little bit more depth, just because it gives that the idea of perspective and whatnot too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
minor, but yeah,
And like Michelle's asking, are there occasions when having that shadow be super strong? Like, of course there's going to be. I don't know what that would be. I generally don't do that.
yeah.
However, that's one of those things. If
Never say
you,
never.
yeah, when you know the rules to things, you get to know and decide when to break them. So just play around with stuff and see what's right. I would just always recommend try to avoid using drop shadows on text at all time, if
Yeah.
at all possible. Generally speaking, if you need text to be readable, like throw a light gradient layer behind it to where maybe on a very light photo, if you're using white text, you would create another layer above the photo behind the text that starts off at like black and then fades to a 0% transparency, and that will ensure that that text is readable. It's something we see very commonly in like blogs and other things of that nature. But that would be the tip there. And I think with that, that's going to be our final tip of the day because I think we're going to get kicked off of here in just a few minutes. So with that, Evan, thank you so much for being here on the stream the last 2 days and
Of course.
building this out and sharing the knowledge that you have. And make sure you all stick around for Howard here on the Daily Creative Challenge, and we'll see you all soon.
Sounds great. Thanks everybody. Had a great time.